Today, I want to show you a Russia that the outside world rarely sees. Not the Russia of official propaganda, not the Russia of state TV channels, parades, and loud speeches about a glorious history, but a different Russia, a quiet, vulnerable, intelligent, almost invisible one. Imagine that someone at the crossroads of the collapse of the USSR and the rise of the Russian Federation, movers in an old garage stumble upon not just old newspapers, but a living snapshot of an entire era. Original Soviet publications from the 1930s to the early 1950s, an entire state archive that turned out to be unwanted by anyone, and the movers are supposed to haul it off to the dump. And these are newspapers from a time when the country still had no idea that a brutal war with Hitler was ahead. Millions of deaths, fear, hunger, hope, and shattered lives. Only later would there be victory. For one person, this is just trash, but for another, it's sacred. For the USSR, which ceased to exist in 1991, it was sacred too. And that country kept the archive of these newspapers as something sacred. But for the Russian Federation that emerged after it, this archive turned out to be just trash, and it was found by movers in an abandoned garage they were supposed to clear out. Vitalis Vis's film Petitfour Polar Mix is a short, ironic, but very deep and philosophical drama. It's about memory, indifference, and a country that loudly worships its past, but for which the real treasures of its history are considered trash. After the film, I'll explain why this story is much more than just a short film.
Hello. Yeah, we're here, basically. Basically, we're here. Yeah, it's just regular yeast here. Yeah? Yeah, no, we won't make it. We'll make it. Let's check it out first, see if everything's okay there. Of course.
Number is it here?
181, right?
Yeah, it seems like it's here.
Around here. No, we'll manage. We'll handle everything ourselves. Well, if not, as usual, you can pull up the car or something. We'll take...
Oh, looks like we've arrived here.
Yeah. All right. I'll call you then. Okay.
So, what's up there?
About the quality. Yeah, he doesn't even know himself what's in that garage.
Well, that means they stored some kind of junk in there.
Imagine if there was a treasure in there. Yeah.
If there was treasure in every garage, you and I would have been millionaires by now.
Or imagine there's a Chaika in there.
Or a T-34 type.
Looks like, well... it's rusted a bit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just a sec. Whoa. What's this, a newspaper or something?
Treasure. Look, there should be something over there. There should be a switch over there. Still, this is just piss. Back in the day, beer used to be good. So, what's in there?
Damn, you'll mark it.
Turn the cap.
Yeah.
The other way.
Oh.
Technology on the edge of science fiction.
If it's Soviet, it means it's the best. So what do we have here?
Just look at this. RSDLP conference. All sorts of old stuff. Well, books, damn it. Science fiction.
And newspapers.
Yeah, can you believe it? Damn, the whole garage is full of newspapers.
Yeah, the owner must be a collector or something.
Collectors, they're all nuts. Damn it.
Careful.
Holy crap, look at all this junk.
Yeah, at least half a ton, if not more. And
What's this? Letters, check it out. Military ones, can you believe it? Where's this thing from? Just a bunch of useless paper. 5 rubles a kilo. And of course, a pain in the ass, damn it. Yeah?
It's generally interesting to read this way. Oh, look!
What's there?
Bolshoi Theater. Repertoire of 1937 to 38. Just the same as now. Wow, this is Othello.
Even going to buy it probably makes sense.
Rigoletto. Faust. Eugene Onegin. Zadko. Litravaya.
Listen, theater goer, come on, decide something. What should we do about this? Here, in general, a maximum of 5 for everything. Find, don't drag.
Wow, look, an advertisement. They're advertising perfume. Oh, a Sensatuki, Narzon. Just like now, huh? Oh, with that State Factory Bolshevik. Bolshevik, can you believe it? Produces, damn, a wide assortment of flour-based confectionery products. Biscuits. Cream, Holland, with anise. Deputy cakes. Deputy cakes, damn! Did they give cakes to deputies or something? Petitfours. Petitfour. What's a Petitfour, anyway?
Probably some kind of flour-based pastry. Maybe they gave it to guys named Petya or something. You know, to those who really stood out on construction sites and stuff?
Petitfour. Never heard of it before. Minion, Red Moscow, and Polar. Polar mix.
See how people used to live? It really made fun of them. Polar licks. And here you are, spending a whole week living off instant noodles.
Oh, they're letting people in. Just like the way we drive. And here's the opera. Lorna Fucci is saying, soprano. Prima from Verona.
Yeah?
Lorna.
I watched some porn recently, and there was a Lorna in it, too.
Was it her?
No, that one was younger. It was like a casting thing. So she comes in, and this French guy is like asking her questions. You have a boyfriend? She says, yeah. Does he know you came here to have sex? Wisdom?
So what happened?
Nothing, really. Can you imagine? He later found that casting online, and by then they were already married with 3 kids. Yeah, he comes home, brings her flowers, gives her this and that. They set the table, have some cutlets, and then he decides to secretly watch some porn. He turns it on, and there's that bald French guy shoving his 5-footer down her throat.
All right, so we need to call Kiryuka and get all this out of here.
Or burn it.
No, come on, we can't burn it. How could we? It's history.
History, my ass. Nobody gives a damn about this story anymore. Everyone just wants to forget about it already. Look, if anyone actually needed this, it would have been online a long time ago, just like that. They would have digitized it and posted it all in neat rows. Am I wrong or what?
But take a look right here, back in 1940.
So what?
The parade, November 7th, 1940.
So what? It's 1940.
The parade, all that, the Red Navy sailors. In half a year, they'll all be off to war. Every single one of them. They won't die. All of them. None of them will be left.
All right, come on, that's enough. Let the car send the rank or whatever. It'll get dark soon.
Hey, give me the power. You don't care either, huh?
Come on now, let me take a look. Wait, are those actually mine? Relatives or something? They were around and then they just disappeared. They just lived their lives. They ate up those trucks. And then they all vanished. Everyone. Forgotten.
But what about Victory Day? The Immortal Regiment?
Well, even a yoke fires once a year. But if it hits close to home, if there's a war, then we'll go too.
And there'll be no one left.
Damn Petitfours.
What you just saw is not just a short film. At first glance, it seems like a very simple story. Two Russian movers come to a private garage to clear out some old junk. Just another job, just another day, just the usual indifference. But among all that junk, they find something truly unusual, an archive of authentic Soviet newspapers, Pravda, Vechernyaya Moskva, and other publications. Issue after issue, folder after folder, a whole layer of history that somehow ended up in a garage. One of the movers sees nothing but paper, trash, weight, work, something he should get paid for. The other suddenly realizes that what he's looking at isn't garbage but historical memory. Not some abstract history from a textbook, but the living fabric of time itself. Newspapers that people of that era once held in their hands. Articles that were read before the war, advertisements that reflected the everyday life of a country that had no idea what kind of catastrophe it was about to face. The film's title, Petitfour Polar Mix, was taken from an actual newspaper publication. It's an ad for Soviet confectionery from that era, a small detail, almost mundane. But it's exactly these kinds of details that make history come alive. Because history isn't just about leaders, war, and government slogans. History is also about candies, posters, parades, announcements, the faces of cadets, names in newspapers, love, relationships, and random phrases printed on paper many decades ago. There's a particularly strong contrast in the film. A young, more sensitive, and educated loader flips through newspapers and sees before him an almost vanished world. He looks at publications about the parade on Red Square in 1940 and realizes these young cadets don't yet know that very soon the war will begin and many of them will go to the front and die. And next to him, another man is telling a crude, vulgar story. He's drinking beer, he's bored, and he seems not to care about anything. He's not interested in history, memory, or culture, only in the money he gets for hauling away old junk. And that's the philosophy of the film. These aren't just two different people. They're two states of society. They're two different Russian states. They're two different worlds. One state is still able to see meaning, able to pause, to be amazed, to almost cry over an old newspaper, because behind it stands a human life, a country, an era, a tragedy. The other state doesn't see anything anymore. To him, everything has become trash. History's trash. The archive is trash. Memory's trash. The only thing that matters is how much they'll pay. And here, the film becomes much broader than just the story of two movers. It speaks about Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. about a time when a huge number of people were thrown out of their former lives. Engineers, teachers, educated professionals, people of culture lost their jobs, their status, their sense of security en masse, and were forced to survive however they could. Some went to work at the market, some became movers, some drank, some hit rock bottom, and some tried to hold on to their humanity. But the film isn't just about people, it's also about the state. In Russia, it's officially very common to talk about the past, about victory, about memory, about great history, about patriotism. But when it comes to actually preserving historical memory, real archives, authentic documents, and cultural heritage, all too often it ends up being neglected. That's exactly what makes the story in the film especially important. The archive we see in this film is connected to a real story. Vitalis Vis, the film's creator, actually saved this huge archive of original Soviet newspapers, which, after the collapse of the USSR, people just wanted to destroy or throw away. It's not just a set piece, and not just an artistic metaphor. This is a real collection, several tons of original newspapers that he still keeps, and there's an almost biblical irony in that. The state can talk for years about the greatness of the past, but it's not the state that actually preserves the real memory of the past. It's saved by a single person. Not a bureaucrat, not a ministry, not a big cultural foundation, but an independent author, director, or artist who understands the value of what others are ready to throw away. That's exactly why Petitfour Polar Mix isn't about nostalgia for the Soviet Union. It's not political propaganda. It's not a film about how the past was wonderful. This is a film about how a society that loses the ability to recognize value starts throwing away its own memory. And if a society throws away its memory, sooner or later it stops understanding itself. There's another important layer. This film also shows the fate of independent art in Russia. There are talented directors, screenwriters, actors, cinematographers, and artists there. But very often, the system supports not the most talented, but the most convenient. Not those who see deeper, but those who are part of the right circles. Not those who are capable of creating real art, but those who are closer to money, connections, and government offices. That's why such films are especially important for an international audience. They show a different Russia. Not just the Russia of power, war, propaganda, and corruption, but the Russia of people who still think, feel, create, remember, and try to preserve human dignity, even in an environment where real culture is often unwanted by anyone. Petitfour Polar Mix is a short film, but it tackles a very big topic. What happens to a country when its history becomes irrelevant to everyone? What happens to people when great meanings turn into paper to be thrown away? And in such a situation, who turns out to be the true guardian of memory? The state with its slogans, or a single person who simply didn't let the archive disappear? Maybe that's exactly why this film is worth showing to an English-speaking audience, because it's not just a Russian story. This is a universal story about memory, culture, indifference, and responsibility. In closing, I want to address those who value history, society, and art. If you represent a cultural organization, archival project, university, museum, foundation, film community, or are simply interested in preserving and digitizing this unique archive of Soviet newspapers, you can contact us using the information provided in the description. Yeah, this is a real newspaper archive that the filmmaker saved from destruction. And while this story is presented as an artistic short film, its foundation is authentic and directly connected to the filmmaker. We are also open to contact with festivals, producers, researchers, and anyone who wants to collaborate or learn more about Vitalis Vis, his short films, and his archive. Thank you for watching. This was the Hidden Russian Cinema Project, independent Russian films translated into English and presented to an international audience.